I'm going to be talking about how the pandemic changed my mental health and my perspective on mental health, and more specifically, the isolation from the pandemic. Um, so looking backwards, I was always completely aware on the importance of an individual's mental health, but I was never concerned for myself, especially in the social aspect, considering that growing up, I was a well socialized child. My mom had me in every Girl Scout or leadership activity imaginable. I was a top cookie seller of 2,000 plus boxes multiple years in a row. I danced for 7 years. I joined advanced classes and schooling as soon as I could. When I went to high school, it was the IBDP program that I joined. So I never really had a problem with social confrontation, whether it was dancing in front of hundreds of strangers or giving a speech for a class project. So I truthfully never really worried or had any thoughts about my own mental health beforehand. And now looking forward, I recognize the many different aspects that play into one's mental health, including recognizing the harm caused by fake and toxic social media, the importance of socialization and social structures, which is the main concept that I'm going to be focusing on, and also creating healthy eating habits, proper nutrition. When COVID first started, I was finishing up my junior year in high school, and then everything went online. Being an IB student was extremely time consuming, and I was exhausted from waking up every day at 6 a.m., going to school 7 hours, getting home an hour after school, work, and then homework until 1 a.m. just to repeat all over again. I was exhausted. So when senior year came, I decided to continue my schooling online, which I truly believe took a toll on my mental health. And I would also just like to say that this is my only online class. All the other classes I take are in person. And this isolation from not going to school, it gave me no structure in my day-to-day life. I started to develop an eating disorder, and I was involved in some really unhealthy habits. I began to feel socially disconnected from my fellow IB peers who I once looked to for support. And outside of school at this time of my life, I wasn't really involved in too many social activities because I mainly focused on work. However, work was also inconsistent as we would constantly shut down and reopen. So I felt a huge social disconnection and completely isolated during this time, which really, you go through things on your own battles, depression and whatnot, throughout that entire schooling time. And that entire time, I never caught COVID. And then about 2 years after the pandemic, I had actually experienced my own health scare that left me hospitalized. And this was during the peak of my ED. So one of my lowest weights in the hospital was about 80 pounds. And I'm 5'1" for reference. So it was like 25 pounds under the healthy recommended weight. And the thing is, if I went to social media at that time and posted a picture, I would have received like comments about being snatched or goals and whatnot. However, when the reality was, in order for me to be that small, I was medically unhealthy. I was extremely sick, very, very sick. And that just goes to show the toxicity and the fakeness that's created out there on social media, even the misinformation. And that actually kick-started like my development of creating a healthy eating cycle. And I truly value and understand the importance of having a strong body and a fueled body, and having the proper nutrition is not only super crucial for your physical, is just as vital for your mental. It keeps you running all day long. If I were to eat breakfast, I feel more energized throughout the day versus when I don't. So that really opened my eyes about that. And ultimately, I believe I have changed. I'm always trying to better myself and my mental day by day. For those who didn't change, I believe that they may have had some sort of social consistency throughout the pandemic or a healthy daily pattern of socialization. And whether it was like they were on a sports team that continued, they were still able to go to work, or they continued school in person. And this actually plays into the chapter concept that I want to talk about, social structures, which is defined as forms of social organizations in a given society that structure or constrain social behavior and social norms across all spheres of social life, including the cultural expectations and norms that underpin social institutional arrangements. So a social structure, for example, would be school or education, which happened to be a huge social structure in my life. So when that was stripped away from me, being as important as it was, and something that is expected, you expect to go to school until you graduate on this date, how could we not expect that to affect our mental health? And it did for me, at least. And not everyone, of course. Like I said, I feel like if they had another social structure in their life that was just as important, I feel like that helped them a little bit through the pandemic. So yeah, it just really opened my eyes on how important social structures are in our day-to-day life. They are needed, especially school. We all dread school, going to school for 12 years, like grade school, I mean, before you're learning what you actually really want to. And it's vital. It is very vital. And yeah, that's all.